Hey guys, welcome to Man Card Mondays, episode number 8. How do I start taking better care of myself? Let's take a look. Lance Farrell, welcome to Man Card Mondays. How the heck are you?
Pastor Andy, I'm super fantastic, but I'm better now that I'm on this call with you.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
I didn't even have to pay you to say that, which Lance, people may recognize your face or your name, even around our church, Lutheran Church of Hope. People also may recognize that logo behind you there, but and I'll let you introduce yourself here in just a second, but we are so excited to have you on here today as we jump into today's topic, which is how do I start taking better care of myself? This is a topic that I was just telling you before we hit record today has always been a challenge for me in one way or another. And I know a lot of guys that have this idea of taking better care of their health and their physical health and their bodies and just really improving the quality of their life. They have this on their list of things to get to someday. And I know you're a guy who's just a big advocate for the heck with someday. What about today? So
Yeah.
Lance, tell us as we get started here today, as we jump in this topic, how do I start taking better care of myself physically? Tell us just a little bit about who you are and why you are so dang passionate about this topic.
You know, I actually started in martial arts, and that gave me the foundation of a little self-discipline, self-control, motivation, and I set some goals in that. But the kicker for the body shaping was when I went to a seminar down in Florida, and Ernie Reyes Sr. was doing this demonstration, martial arts demonstration, where Ernie's at the time 55 years old. He gets his shirt ripped off, and he looks like a professional bodybuilder. And we're all going, "Look at this guy, he's amazing." After he gets done with his demonstration, he puts his shirt back on, whatever, gets on the microphone and says, "You guys should try a program called Body for Life." I did this. It's by Bill Phillips, and so I went and got 10 books, gave them to all of our staff, say, "Guys, we're going to do this program for a year, see what happens." Well, two of us stuck with it because a year is a long time. There's nobody coaching them. Just read the book and do it. That's hard. So we started the program back in 2001. And to me, it was about physical transformations. How do we make these people like individual little bodybuilders applying the same system? Because who's the best physiques out there? Bodybuilders. So let's do their eating, let's do their exercise, let's follow what they do because they know how to do it. Well, it was all physical until we have a graduation party where we give out prize money. So it's about the third party we did, and the winner gets $1,000. And I look over and there's a guy sitting at a table by himself. His name's Chad. So I went out and sat by Chad, and I said, "Chad, how you doing?" I thought he was like, I could tell he still wasn't in the fitness he wanted to be in. He still had a ways to go. I thought he was just upset because he didn't have good results. "Chad, how you doing?" He goes, I'm a new person." What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, before I started your program, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I hated going to work. I was so embarrassed about how I looked, and I've lost about 30 pounds. I still have a ways to go, but now I have a new lease on life." And I'm getting choked up listening to this guy. And I realized it wasn't about the physical transformation. It was about the physical, mental, spiritual transformation people were having going through our program by feeling better about themselves when they look in the mirror or how they're moving, playing with grandkids, that kind of thing. So yeah, that motivated me, and then we're hearing stories all the time like Chad's, and that just puts fuel to the fire,
Yeah, well, it sounds in a positive way, it sounds very addicting. I think about my own story and even the way I ended up in ministry and in even men's ministry. Sometimes, you just kind of wander in, you're like, oh, maybe this is something God wants me to do. And then you see a life change, you see impact, right? And we talked about this when we did our episode a while back about retirement. There's kind of two buckets as men that we really want to see filled up. And it's tempting to go for one over the other. One is the success, right? But the other one that often gets ignored is this idea of significance, our significance bucket. And I can tell, Lance, that you are a guy who's been able to fill both at the same time, which is pretty cool and an absolute blessing. So kudos to you for that. So as you, how many locations do you guys have?
We have 68 locations.
Okay, and you're in multiple states, and so you've had quite an impact, and now you're starting to see that spread even across the U.S. And I think one of the things that I'm passionate and wanted to have you on the show today is just this idea of when we think about our physical health, well, we tend to compartmentalize that from our spiritual health. But I think you and I both agree Jesus kind of cares about the whole thing, right? All these different parts of us, and that's you just alluded to that even as you talked about the impact you've seen throughout your work and your experience with that. Will you? I think though that compartmentalization sometimes shows up and people say, well, yes, I'll work spiritually, maybe even relationally, like I'm doing really well, like the physical stuff, I will get to that. But will you just elaborate maybe just a little bit more? What is at stake when it comes to our physical health, right? Obviously, there are some things that we think about, length of life, mobility, things like that. But what would you say? Why is addressing my physical health today something that's incredibly important to be thinking about?
It's Chad's story. It's everybody's story. When you feel better about yourself, you can smile, and then when somebody sees you smile, you're helping that other person because you're giving them that smile because you're a happier person. It's just about being happy. When you take care of yourself, you're in a better mood. Everything is better. We can't control the weather. You know, if we try and control the weather, we're not gonna do well. But we can control our health. We can control. So we got to work on what we can control.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things. So in the Bible, the body is the temple for the Holy Spirit. That's no accident that that's in there. And you know, we were created in Genesis 1:27. So God created mankind in his own image. In his image, he created them, male and female, he created them. He
Mhm.
created us in his image. What does that mean? It means this body is our temple. It's very important. We need to take care of it. And when we do take care of it, we get many benefits from that.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I think exercise, so sweating is good. People don't like it sometimes, but it's the kind of the key to building your immune system up is eating right and exercise. It's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I love how you talk about the physical but it also combines, or the tangible combines with the intangible, right? Like that feeling of confidence. And I think about some of the work that we do as a men's ministry with guys trying to understand their identity. So oftentimes we can fall into an orphan mindset where we're all alone and, we don't have anybody else to help walk with us, or a slave mindset where, we're just kind of working for God and it's way more about duty rather than delight and a loving relationship. And yet our identity, the Bible's pretty clear, is sons, right? We are beloved sons. And I am amazed sometimes how, guys, we can know that in our heads, but it's so challenging for us to believe that in our hearts and to, I mean, it's a bad word, but to operationalize that into the way we live our everyday life. And yet having an experience, I've been working on some house projects has been really helpful to me, or something like conquering a physical challenge and feeling that transformation over a period of time, right? Like I know you have people set goals and you measure things at the beginning and at the end of a season of your program, right? Then people compare their results and even, yeah, going back to Chad's story, right? When it's not what we thought it would be, or maybe what you had perceived it would be, it was still incredible. And so there's some way there we experience, I think, more of God, what God has for us as we go through that too. So yeah, that's incredible. Will you tell me a little bit more as you kind of look at health and physical fitness and taking care of ourselves through this spiritual lens? Tell me more about the lens you think God looks at us through. What is God's take on our health? What is God's dream for us when it comes to our physical health?
So I'm gonna some more shameless marketing here, like the sign I have at the back behind me. This is our student manual we give people. But at the bottom of this on the back, I've got Romans 12:2, and I think it's hard to see this, but there it is.
You got it.
Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you know God's will, His good, perfect, and pleasing will. So we should not fall into the trap of the temptations of the world. So a temptation is the marketing, for food and stuff, that is really, hey, my short-term pleasure is to eat this food right now. My long-term gain is to discipline myself not to eat that, because I know in long term it's not gonna be healthy for me.
Yeah.
So it's a battle that we have with self-control, self-discipline. So if we really look at Romans 12:2, and we can discipline ourselves to not conform to the patterns of this world, then we're going to do much, much better in every area.
Yeah.
And that's, food is one temptation. There's many, many temptations out there, but in my world, I want to help people to get over that temptation of the food and of not moving. And once you get in the habit of eating a little bit better, you don't have to eat pure all the time, but if you eat a little bit better and you start moving, then I'm getting into kind of the last part of our podcast here, giving some recommendations. But
Yeah.
once you create a habit, it's easy to keep the habit going. And what habit are you in now? You're in the habit of what you're eating and what you're doing for lack of or exercise. And is that where you want to go? Is that what you want to be doing? Or is there something better you could be doing?
Yeah. Well, okay. So speaking of habits and enacting change and moving in the direction that God has for us, right? Choosing to, as you just talked about, push back on maybe the behavior and customs of the world, but move in God's direction. I mean, what is it that you tend to see as you work with men? What are the challenges that make it so hard for us to stick with those new habits or to continue to move in that new direction?
That's all it is. It takes 21 days to change a habit. And so a lot of people we're all creatures of habit. And it's hard to make a change because with food especially, it's a matter of planning. And I think most people can get the book Body for Life, read it, and know exactly what to eat, or go through our program, know exactly what to eat. But it's a matter of planning it. It takes a little bit of planning. If I get hungry, I don't make a plan, then I'm going to go grab the quickest thing I can. That's not always the best choice. So it's very simple. You just got to plan it, and it's not hard to figure out what is good to eat. Good proteins, good carbs, vegetables, water. It's not hard to figure that out. The hard part is changing your habits, and that's where you lean on, your faith to a certain degree, because that's one. God, Jesus can change any bad habit out there.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who has put in some effort, is working on it, and has not had the success maybe in the first round that they thought they would? What would you say to somebody to kind of encourage them to be able to come back and try again? Because I know a lot of stories actually of people that have tried to make changes, right, in all kinds of areas of life, and they have limited success, or something happens, or they're doing so great, right? And then a virus hits and shuts down the entire planet for a little while, or, there's all kinds of things that happen to us. Where is it that you find motivation, and where is it that you find other people that you've worked with that have been successful? Where is that motivation to come back and try again? Where does that come from?
So you have to keep feeding your mind positive things. In a negative world, when things are getting bombarded with all this negative stuff, with everything, it seems like these days there's some fear, or there's something that's going on out there that's not positive. So you have to put positive things in your mind. So there's some really good authors I've been reading and listening to audio books and stuff lately, but I went back to an old one that I listened to years and years ago and read the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Most people have heard of that or listened to it. So one of those habits is begin with the end in mind. And when you begin with the end in mind, it's like, where do you want to be? How do you see yourself? And so when it comes to the physical part of this, I want to see myself physically more fit than I am now, or whatever you're looking for. And when you start there, and then you work backwards from it, then you're going to have a little more self-control. You're going to have a little more discipline when it comes to not making a bad choice when it comes to nutrition. Or I don't feel like exercising today because I have a headache. Well, maybe your headache will go away if you exercise.
Yeah.
So it's just getting in a habit. And if you see that goal, then it just makes it so much easier. The long-term goal, the benefit has to be more powerful than that short-term pleasure that you're looking for by avoiding exercise or by eating the Twinkie.
So hard.
It is hard, but hard is good. Hard makes us do things that we don't normally do. Hard is good.
Right.
And it's either going to be hard now when you're disciplining yourself on the food and exercise, or it's going to be hard later when you're sitting in the doctor's office and he's giving you the talk, hey, you better do something, you're gonna have a heart attack or whatever it might be.
Right.
I'd rather control the hard instead of it coming at me where I can't control it.
Yeah. Obviously, one of the other things, and this goes back again to our faith as well. You talked about being created in God's image, and God Himself is 3 in 1, right? So literally in God's DNA is this idea of community. Will you just talk a little bit about what you've seen in terms of the relationship of people being connected relationally to other healthy people and the impact that has on them, whether that's in your extreme body shaping program or other facets of life?
Well, we were wired to be in community, and that's why this whole Zoom thing drives me nuts. I'd rather be sitting there in the room with you, Andy, and just, having a good conversation. But we were definitely created to be in community. And so when you're doing something with other people with the same goal in mind, it just makes it a little bit easier. It's not easy, but it makes it better. It makes it more doable. And you think, I'm not the only one suffering over here. But the thing is, when you break bread together, you bond. There's no doubt about it. We're going to sit down and drink coffee, have, whatever, you bond. When you sweat together, it's a weird thing. I've seen it. You also bond. You're in there working out really hard. You get done with the class. People after class they're loud. Their volume goes up. Before class, they're coming in kind of quiet. After class, everybody's all excited. Maybe because it's finally over, but they're at least bonding with that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've heard a little bit of research, not enough to probably quote it well, but this I want to say even this word communitas comes to mind, where, and maybe it leans towards more people go through traumatic things, together, some sort of scary situation, or they fight some kind of challenging task or adventure together and they complete it. There's been some form of transformation in terms of their relationship as well, that when we do hard things together with people, somehow that brings us closer together, usually. And even what you were talking about with, how transformation begins with the mind and having those positive messages and things as well. I can think about so many different times in my life where I have played up to the level where I saw the rest of the team or the community at, and people inspire me. And I agree with you. That is part of why this COVID season and the Zoom thing and all that is so hard, because we just get a fraction of that when we just have these virtual gatherings instead of in-person stuff. So absolutely. All right. Well, final question today, Lance, as we talk about this. I mean, we've talked about next steps a little bit, but as somebody in my mind who comes across as an expert in this whole idea of physical health and transformation, and again, I'm looking at all this in the context of you're really helping people discover the best that God has for them when it comes to their bodies and taking good care and optimizing their experience with their physical health. Like if a guy's watching this today and he's frustrated, he's been around the cycle a few times, maybe whatever, or maybe just thinking about this really for the first time I'm amazed too. Like sometimes how guys are just completely clueless about their relationship with their bodies and they just kind of eat whatever and never exercise, those kinds of things. Where does a guy start today? Where does he begin this process of diving deeper into experiencing God's best for his physical life?
So a couple of things before I get into the details on that is one other habit from Stephen Covey of successful people is to sharpen the saw. Mm-hmm. So if you think about that habit, when it comes to physical exercise, you're sharpening the saw. I want to give the listeners out there a tip, though. There's another one out there. Darren Hardy, the entrepreneurial roller coaster. He owns Success Magazine, but it's I got the audio. I've listened to it when I'm driving to and from the office, and I can't get enough of it. He's got great stories. But Darren Hardy is the newest Stephen Covey in my mind. He's really motivational. So to me, you fill your mind with those positive things from professionals that have been there, done that can give you great advice. And that's very, very helpful, especially when there's possible stress coming in your life and things are chaotic. You've got to take time for yourself. And so I'm going to give 5 tips. One of them is taking time for yourself. You and I were talking about that. You're doing a floor thing in your house right now, redoing your floors. But sometimes that's therapeutic to get away from all the other chaotic stuff. You're running a power tool, there's something good about that. But we have to take time for ourselves. Look at what Jesus did. He would get away from everybody, go up on the mountain and come back. Where'd he go? He was like recharging his battery, right? Came back recharged. We need to listen to that, learn from that, and follow his lead because he showed us how to do it. he was tired of all these disciple kids giving him a hard time. We have our own kids or whoever, right?
Right.
With me, it's like some great franchisees, but sometimes like children. I hope none of them watch this. I'll get in trouble. But they get it. We're on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
But 5 things. Number 1, write down your food. Write down what you're eating and then look at it. You might be surprised at how, if you have that goal in mind at the end, that you might discipline yourself a little bit if you know you're writing it down. And then if you want to the next level, share that with somebody, show it to them, have an accountability partner for every week. You turn your food logs to them. That can change what you're eating all by itself. And I don't think anybody can have trouble finding out what they really should eat. Number 2 on my list, which I hit on, was really take time for yourself. So important. Number 3 is to move. Okay, just move. What are you going to do? Go on a walk? You know, that's something you can do. That's one of my other tips, is just start walking or running if you can. But walking is great. You get the same muscle tone out of walking as you do running. Not the same cardiovascular, but you get the same physical muscle toning when you walk as if you run the same length. And I've pushed this a lot because it's easy. You can do it. Do push-ups and sit-ups. And give you my strategy on this. It's so simple to do if you have that end goal in mind, and take the time to do it before you go to bed or when you first get up in the morning. I like to do it in the morning. I work out. I've been following our program for 20 years because I'm just in the habit of doing it, and it's easy. Just do it. But if you don't have a program, you can do push-ups, and you can do sit-ups or crunches. Start with the push-ups first because you engage your abs when you do those. You know, wear them completely out before you do your push-ups. But do push-ups and do as many as you can. Okay, and count them. And then roll over and do sit-ups or crunches as many as you can. And then roll over and do your push-ups again. You do 3 sets of each. So you do push-ups, sit-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, and count them. You won't be able to do nearly as many in the second and third sets, but you want to reach your muscle failure, so you can't do one more. Absolutely, that's the last one every time. By counting them, if you do this every other day, you do walking or running on the other days, you will notice a dramatic improvement, dramatic increase in number. And that's motivational in itself because you know you're gaining. You may not see it in the mirror right away, but you see those numbers, and hey, write those down because you can like look at it a month later, like, wow, I started with 30 push-ups. Now I'm doing 80 push-ups. And my wife noticed how am I looking a little better here, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a motivator. So that's it. So, you know, simple tips on the food. When you're writing it down, try to eat protein the size of your palm. Everybody has this measuring tool, right? Your palm. Carbs the size of your fist, well, that measuring tool. And then that's it. Don't eat any more because overeating is the problem. In fact, that's a bigger problem than what you eat, is eating too much at a time. The buffets are not a good idea because I'm a farm boy. I try to get my money's worth. That's not good.
Guilty as charged.
So what's going to happen is you'll get hungry about 2.5, 3 hours later when your stomach adjusts. You'll get even more hungry before that, but in a week or two, your stomach will adjust, and then you'll know when it's time to eat. Like right now, I can feel time to eat again. By doing that and then drinking at least 8 ounces of water every meal with that, and then try and get some green vegetables with it, you're gonna have the program right there.
Yeah. Awesome.
But it takes planning. Are you gonna eat 5-6 times a day without planning? You have to plan those out. Maybe in between a regular meal, you have a protein shake or a protein bar or something to supplement that. But starving your body when it feels hungry is a bad idea because then it goes into storage mode instead of burn mode. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Lance, so much for taking the time to be with us today. Thank you for giving some practical ways to jump in. Guys, if you want to learn more about Lance and what he's got going on with Farrell's or some of the things that he mentioned today, some great Bible verses and books, we'll try and get those plugged into the description underneath here on this video on YouTube. And you can dig into that. But most importantly, I love what he said about Romans 12, right? This idea that transformation begins with renewing of our mind. And so I really think it's incredible to start looking at this from God's perspective. And maybe you have somebody in your life that nags you. Maybe you've gotten some medical news that says, you know, maybe somebody's shooting all over you. You should do this. You should do that, right? My intent here, I think, is just to get us thinking about this from God's perspective. And as a father who loves us and wants to take care of us, I know he wants the best for us. And as Lance has been talking about, he's designed us certain ways in science and exercise science kind of has revealed some of that. And so it's an opportunity for us to live into that and experience God's love and God's grace and honestly God's joy, right? And the peace and confidence that comes from these things as well. So be sure and take a look at that and dig in where you see fit. And I think that's it, guys. So happy rest of your Monday or whatever day you end up watching this. I hope you have a great day. Lance, thank you again for being here, guys. We will talk to you later. Adios.